You're listening to the Talking TUF podcast, creating tough minds for fitness, nutrition, and business. With your hosts, Rob Foster and Josh Phelps.
So on today's show, we will be introducing our good friend Henri, who will be coming on board, and we'll talk a little bit more about what he's going to be doing, and hopefully with the future of the unit fitness. We'll also be hopefully covering, depending on whether I go off on one, to be honest, but hopefully covering, does it have to be all one thing or another when it comes to fitness, when it comes to certain sort of modes of training, doing different things like that? What do you focus on when approaching a diet? And also, why challenges can be amazing, but also be the downfall for some people. I think that's, it's an interesting thing to go through and talk about why challenges can be great. And they have been fantastic for a lot of people. We've all done different challenges and hopefully always challenge ourselves. And we've got reasons for doing that. But I do know there are some downfalls. And we're bringing this up because Grace, part of our team, has set up a challenge for this week. And for people listening, we'll share that out hopefully and then see if anyone else wants to get involved in that press-up challenge. And hopefully people do. But more importantly, is say Henri today. Henri, first of all, when you come onto the show, I think you're actually the first guest on the new podcast setup. Is that right, Rob?
Sat in front of the video right there. So obviously we video this for YouTube, so you're in the limelight as such with these bright lights on you.
It's an honour.
We'll filter you, don't worry. It's okay. We'll do as much filtering as possible. But we're going to touch down today. The first thing we do, Henri, is back and forth, myself and Rob. Obviously not been able to have many guests on because of obvious reasons. Is starting with gym fails. Yeah. We do like to think that gym fails are quite amusing. Yeah. They can be quite deadly as well, but we're going to go with more of the amusing side. What would you say one of your most comical gym fails are? And it doesn't matter, we've all had them. Be open and honest.
Probably one of the worst that I've had actually would be, I was very tired, got into the gym.
There you go. Sorry.
Good. Got into the gym, was doing some Olympic lifting. Shouldn't have done it when I was that tired. Did a push jerk, didn't tuck my chin, bang, straight on to the bottom of the gym with I probably had about 60 on the bar. Chipped my tooth. Then when it went straight overhead, dropped it on my head, was concussed for about 2 weeks.
Is this in the same lift?
Yeah, all in one lift. So
that is a stinker.
Concussion in the same time. Yeah.
Wow,
brilliant!
I've hit my chin on a push press, or on a push jerk really actually, and it's like literally getting uppercutted. You don't get your head out of the way, bang, straight under the chin.
Chip tooth.
Drop the bar. I didn't.
That's so upsetting.
Could be. Still got it. Yeah. It could have been a tongue biter, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Literally.
Don't
imagine that. Wow.
Talking of that, no, I'm not going to get into that. There's a show I saw recently, and somebody bit that. It's horrendous. I'm not going to go. But anyway, Sons of Anarchy. If anyone wants to watch that, that is disastrous, horrendous, really. So you're lucky to end up like that guy because that did not look pretty. Yeah. But that's a pretty good gym fail, and it's it's actually I think more of a common one than people
dropping
would realise.
On your head.
Dropping on your head, mind you. I don't know how many people have dropped the bar
again,
on their
because
head.
if you try and move out of the way when it's the bar path, if you don't know what's going on, if you just hit yourself on the way up, then I suppose. But some people we've seen, some clients who their arms give way a little bit, and it's quite hard to actually slow the bar down. They're like, whoa. Little graze on the head because the knurling on the bar is quite rough as well. I've got like grazed head. You've
not really got a lot of protection up
really,
there, have you? You
can't get away with that if I.
You'll get a grazed head.
Chris is like, what have you done to your head again? I was like, I've dropped the bar. It's actually more so when it's on the rack and you go to duck under it to squat and you just don't give yourself enough room. Bumped up to get under for a squat, bang.
You could have like a mohawk, like grazed down the top of your head. That'd look pretty cool. That'd be like a barbell. Cool scar. So anyway. We're going to get on. Basically, we'll see how this goes to start off with. But you've obviously been sort of doing bits in the last couple of weeks at the unit, involved in some of the sessions, which is great. We've had some really good positive feedback. But a little bit more about your background, I think people would like to know. It's always nice to know sort of what you've done, where you've come from, who you've seen. Now, obviously, we know from like an educational standpoint, sort of things, some of the things you've done. But let's touch base on some of the things you've done. Your courses on and certain things that people might want to hear about. So over the last say 4 or 5 years of studying and practical work, let's hear a little bit about that. What's been going on?
So as you probably can tell by my voice, I'm actually a northerner. Came down to Cambridge to go to uni. Not actually at Cambridge, I'm not that smart. At AIU. Yeah. So studied there, did sports coaching and physical education there. And alongside did quite a bit of coaching, like in the community for local teams and stuff like that. Did quite a bit of work for Cambridge Uni, so within their rugby department, so with their women's and their seconds team, I did like their S&C and stuff like that, on field training a couple of times a week. Then from that I got a gig with Northampton Saints, so that was based out of the Lees, just with their academy, just doing the S&C stuff within the gym, just with the young guys. And then from there I got referred to Jesus College, and I was the head S&C coach for the rowing team for them, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Alongside,
nice, cool, very cool.
Great little resume to start.
Yeah, that's it. It's good. So,
so Josh, you've worked at Domino's.
Yeah, I've done Domino's.
You've
Domino's.
You said about your
I think that was my prime.
Your jet washing patios.
Yeah, no, I did definitely do some jet washing of patios.
Good resume.
Once. What else have I done? I worked in a shop which was called Martin's back in the day, which is pretty much a news agents. So yeah, I'm up there with the coaching. I think I'm pretty much the S&C coach for those guys. Yeah. So if Domino's needed an S&C coach, I reckon I could do that. So it's quite. The thing is, it's the technical lift, because when you're collecting the pizzas, which is obviously unilateral movement balance is needed, knocking on the door with the underhand, Diet Coke
extension
hold,
slightly through the elbow.
So you're knock, hold, and balance, and not a lot of people can do that. So you probably didn't realise they had the S&C coach, but yeah, that was a past job of mine. So with the sort of rugby and rowing and things like that, I mean that's brilliant. That brings up different strengths, different things, different focus areas.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know when we've discussed and spoken, obviously in the past, about some of the things you concentrate on. They're different sports, but then like a lot of sports and things, there's things that are transferable. Things that you would maybe focus on, things that, as you say, would benefit most sports potentially. And I'm just trying to get into the fact that you focused on a lot of prerequisites to your training. What things you maybe do preloading training. And what were the big things you sort of found that you were interested in or studied further into?
So for my dissertation, my subject matter was like preloading muscle groups and stuff like that. So the effects of so I very much concentrated on the lower limbs as well. So all that posterior chain, if we load that before we actually go into a certain exercise or a training program, what effects will that have instead of just let's go through standard mobility?
Yeah. So if we just as a but people may or may well not know, but when we talk about the posterior chain, especially lower limbs and stuff, just to give people a bit of a breakdown about what you're talking about.
Your hamstrings, your glutes, so your butt muscles, and then just that upper back. So it's basically, if you cut yourself in half, stood on the side, it's those back bits.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. All right, perfect. And what did you see? What was the outcome of it? What was?
Well, it was a very long study, and I had to, because obviously COVID and stuff like that, we couldn't really do a lot of practical base, so it was very reading a shit ton of literature.
Yeah.
So it was just reading through it, and then I found that it does have an effect. It's very basic with dissertations, that you come down to your final conclusion, and it's just like, does it help? Does it not? And yeah, it did. There was like a big increase of so the actual the bro term mind to muscle connection. That you're actually like, you've got a stimulus there, so you're actually thinking about it. So then when you actually go into the main exercise, it's like, okay, let's use those muscles instead of them. Different muscles. So like with squat patterns and stuff like that, people would lean over slightly a little bit more because the hamstrings were firing rather than the quads. So that they'd go to them muscles to use for that exercise rather than what they'd usually go. So like squat patterns would change slightly, only very, very slightly. Deadlift and stuff like that, they'd pull more with the posterior chain rather than driving through the floor, so like less knee flexion, more hip extension and stuff like that. So yeah, it had a positive effect. People were lifting more, people were getting in better positions and stuff like that. So yeah,
I think it makes sense, doesn't it? Just prime the muscles you want to focus on first. And it sounds a funny thing, but like there's words bandied around the internet, you've got to activate, you've got to switch on, you've got to prime this. Generally, it's just one thing is that, like what you probably found out, is warm up the muscles you want to get them working so you can actually feel. And I think a lot of people struggle with the feeling of tensing and contracting those muscles. We found over the years that ask people to tense their abs, they can't physically, they haven't got that. Like if you can tense a bicep, a lot of people can. Most people can squeeze, and they go, I can squeeze my bicep. Ask them to do it for their abs. Yeah, it's a harder contraction, a harder movement to actually do. Yeah.
Especially then to try and do squeeze the glute. I was going to say, you start talking about the hamstrings.
That's very hard to contract. Yeah. Like mind-muscle connection type thing. So,
and we've talked about that mind-muscle connection, and I know you kind of said mind-muscle in the quotations. So if you're not watching, the old finger quotations, things popped up, and I get that because it is this definite thing around the industry, whether it's a thing or not or what. Now, I would argue it's very hard to say that if you're not concentrating on a certain thing, if you've not activated, done whatever you're, got, blood flow to it, started, working through that without, then if you're thinking about that area, as old school rudimental as this may sound, like if I was to poke you in your arm constantly, right, in your shoulder for ages, and then you're going to raise your shoulder, you'd feel the area that I've been poking 100%. Constantly. And this is, and sometimes I've said it to clients in the past, and it's a little bit weird, more so guys, right? I'm like, I struggle to feel it in my chest sometimes. I'm like, right, whereabouts do you sort of hit? And I'd actually sometimes you can get them to physically get their thumb, poke into certain areas, and almost like, not be funny, rub it, right? Yeah. So the workings that muscle, almost bringing the blood to it, bring the attention to that area. So when they come to push, they're like, oh yeah, I can think about the area now, because they can think about the area. It's like, you get smacked by a ball somewhere. It's like, you're aware of that area then, aren't you? You're running on it, but you can almost feel the area you've been hit by, the ball or something. And this is kind of, when people are like, but it doesn't really, I can't see how you can't be more focused or be able to at least have the ability to, because for a lot of people, as we just said, being able to go, right, some people wouldn't even know where their hamstrings were, particularly how it works, so you might be like, focus on your hamstrings. You may not even be aware of when that action's taking place. So by going, right, we're going to get this sort of fired up a little bit, switched on, maybe say doing some mobility or stretching your activation or whatever you want to call it. And then when we go to do this, that bit's already been slightly worked. I can feel it a little bit more, and now I can focus on that feeling or that area, whatever that area is, whether it's my hamstring, whether it's my glute, I may not really know, but that part of my body I know is playing ball now. It's coming into play, and actually I can now think, if I go, right, squeeze that, that part just beneath your bottom or wherever it is, where it doesn't matter. They're like, I think about that now, because they've, as you say, created that. So I know there's a lot of studies into it saying, well, whether it is or isn't, and I truly personally, for me, I know working with clients for a long time that if I start to get them to, pre-activate or whatever it may be, certain areas that, funnily enough, they can feel them when they're working in a bigger compound movement, for instance.
Jump into a hamstring curl. Like say we're doing banded, like we did in our barbell club program last year. People were really struggling to feel the hamstrings curling. They're like, I'm just feeling my calves pump out, or or I feel the glutes, or whatever. Or they're just doing it, but they're doing the action, right? Their legs are curling, but they just can't feel it. Do some stiff leg deadlifts before, do some kettlebell swings, start tiring out, start getting the hamstrings actually fired up. Go back into it, get them to almost, you could say, look, just poke around the area of the back of the legs where you think it should tense. Now try it, and now squeeze. Oh yeah, now I can really feel it now. Obviously, sometimes it might be a bit of an angle change where they've had, we've got knees and hips, but that's non-machine related. Obviously, if you sit in a hamstring curl machine, it's pretty hard not to feel the hamstrings pulling in if you got yourself set up right. But
this sort of leads on to one of the subjects we were going to talk about, was that there's lots of different ways of sort of styles or things that can come into play with different. So you're talking about rugby, rowing, this, that, and the other, but there's things that you would have used in those movements, right? So let's talk about one that people will just know naturally, the plank, right?
Yep.
Plank hold. Now, there's loads of different variations of plank holding, and we've discussed like things like plank reaches, side plank, whatever it may be. And certain people can perform them, certain people have to do adaptations, and all of that's well and good. And that might be something that you would do as a prerequisite to getting people sort of, if we're talking about core or midsection, you were talking about abs earlier and things like that. But actually side planks and going, right, okay, I want you to really squeeze and feel that side. So rather than going, right, we need to switch on your obliques and your trunk of this, we're just talking quite basic and going, right, we're feeling that side bit, trying to pick your hips up if you can. We have to put them down again, but we're working through. And it's funny because you start doing that and somebody will relate that, oh yeah, we do this, that's rugby training.
Yeah.
Because it's what I did with rugby. And then you go across and someone's like, well, no, Pilates is the best for you for that sort of thing. It's like, right, okay, oh no, yoga. And it's like, right, okay, there might actually be slight variance within each sport or training modality as such. Yep. But we're all there's lots of things that overlap. But have you ever found those like super like, this is the way to train people? And it's like, okay, and I'm training people like, oh yeah, well this is a yoga move. I'm like, it's a movement.
Yep.
It's a movement. Like training is often movement, and they do overlap and overlap. But it's so funny when you get these real pro one way. The warriors, like it's like, nope, this is it. You have to train this way. Well, I lost weight because I did this. It's like, yeah, but actually you can do that in different things. You've got to find out how you find these things and do these things. But also sometimes it is dressing up in a different way, because if you maybe went in, and this is probably unfair by the way, completely stereotyping, but if you maybe went into a group of guys who were playing rugby and went, right, today guys we're doing ballet, you might, this is old school, right? Yeah. And actually majority, I think guys would be like, hey, quality, let's get up for it. Especially rugby lads, they've probably got their tutu still in their bag, like from the Saturday night when they've been out on the beers. But you might get well, why are we doing this sort of jobby? But actually, if you broke it down and actually did like single leg RDL things, which is a balancing movement and stuff, you actually it's not far off of a little, I'm going to say plie, just because
we tried it in the past.
Yeah, it didn't work out too well, did it? No.
Pretty bad.
But what I'm saying is, it's that there is lots of movements, and what I'm enjoying now is that I do see that, I suppose it's cross training, where people are using lots of different modalities and things into different areas, rather than it being bodybuilding only does this, doesn't do that. Pilates only do this, don't do it. I'm not saying, I don't know if it's actually a good thing, and from a Pilates instructor, I don't know how they actually feel about this, because I think there's like quite an art to original Pilates, but then there's all these like
hybrid versions of
Pilates box. It's like, what's that? Well, it's boxing with Pilates. It's like, okay, I don't know if that's the thing really, but maybe it is. I don't know, but as I say, it's but what I'm saying, people are starting to hybrid and move lots of different movements into different things.
Think how much CrossFitters spun off different modalities and they're basically blending. They in essence they blended everything into one, right? They took Olympic lifting, which is a very technical sport, and they added high intensity cardio and odd object lifting and all sorts into one, and they kind of mashed everything together. And then from that, there's other things that come up with actually this bit of CrossFit's terrible, but actually this is quite good.
But that's it, isn't it? There's pros and cons to this as well, and this is what I was going to get at. Is
the main outcome is movement is key, right?
Yeah, and if you can look at different things that have been very beneficial, like you were saying with your dissertation, that actually preloading or whatever it may be doing to training, getting that posterior chain focus, that people actually start to move slightly differently. Well, actually, if you look at what those movements were, if you were to look at, say, your warm-up, if you gave us a real basic outline of a warm-up, for instance, something that you may go through with someone, you're probably looking at mobility, stability, core, and actually, if someone was to break that down, go, well, that's a downward dog, that's yoga, and then someone else might go, well, that's a plank, that's Pilates, and it's like, these are things that we use, right? These are things that we do, and they're really beneficial. If you want to label them or put them into that category, fine. But actually, it's kind of movement, and I think it's great when people sort of open their minds to go, right, when you look at something like, say, what we do, the conditioning classes and things, you've got so many different modalities of training within it. Like, oh, so what training do you do? Like, well, we do, I suppose we call it our conditioning class as such. But within that, if you were to break down the individual movements, you could be like, oh, well, we do. Some person might come along and go, well, that looks like a CrossFit session, because you've got kettlebells and dumbbells and you're doing thrusters and things like that. Somebody else potentially could be like, Oh,
circuits.
it's a circuit session.
Yeah. Strength training,
Pilates. Somebody, if they saw certain snippets of each part, it's a cardio blitz.
The thing being, everything's marketed to HIIT now is any type of higher intensity exercise. However, really HIIT training is all out 100% effort for very short periods of time. Yeah. You can't do
nobody
HIIT
gives
session
recovery
for 45 minutes to an hour. It's a 10 minute, like literally 50-second rest, 10-second blitz times 10, and that's your HIIT session done. But it's everything's gone into a bit of a commercially marketed sort of way now, isn't it? So you've got your Pilates mixed with ballet and CrossFit and boxing and everything into one, and it's like called something crazy. And if that's the program, if that's the system, and it works, then great.
Wow, it sounds like a lorry's about to drive into us, by the way, which isn't ideal.
We're in a very warm studio. So
yeah, exactly. The windows are open. Lorry's about to drive into us. So I think it's interesting listening to some of the things you've done and some of the things you've found out through your training a bit. Yeah. From your training experience, do you feel like things are a little bit more advanced? Sort of, now within those, if we talked about some of the S&C stuff that was going on 10, not 15, 20 years ago, it just wasn't really anywhere near this level. And I think this is a great thing that has stepped up.
100%.
There's a lot of science. Yeah. Been really worked hard on the last few years.
Actually, what a lot of unis are doing at the moment, when you're actually gathering information and articles and stuff like that, you always check the date. Yeah, but it's pretty much you will not click on something that is older than 10 years. Right. If it's older than 10 years, it's probably been updated. Yeah. People have done new studies, people have found new information and completely disregarded all that past work. The newer articles that you can find, the better. And I'm not saying that they're more reliable, but they've probably gone into depth a little bit more and found some new information, especially with training and stuff like that. It almost seems very new that the whole idea of like a calorie deficit and stuff like that, and calorie expenditure and stuff like that, and it's all very calorie based, and that almost seems new, but it's, to a lot of people, it's quite common knowledge now. Everybody tracks the calories.
I mean, that leads us on to the next thing. I mean, calories aren't a new thing, right? No. Being in a deficit isn't a new thing to lose weight, right? Proteins, fats, and carbs are not new, right? We've known about these for years and years and years, and they've been, as you say, dressed up in lots of different ways. And one of the things we were going to talk about today is when you look into a diet, what do you look for? And I think often people are looking at how they're going to lose weight, right? They look at how they're going to do it. So they find a modality of dieting versus training. So like, or both. And it's like, right, I'm going to do this for this time. And if they almost put this sort of, I feel like there's a lot of people, when they look for a diet, they're looking for a way of doing something to drop weight. Yeah. And they want to do it quickly, obviously, the majority of people. And it's kind of like, right, I need to do, this is how I'm going to do it. Once again, majority of the time, they're just cutting out doing something super extreme. I mean, recently, big up around the there's your keto, your vegan, your whatever else. I mean, last year it was all about intermittent fasting, and we're going to have loads of different things going on, but they're so extreme every single time. The person looking to do or lose weight in whatever time will find the one that looks like it suits them best, but still are willing to do something so extreme that, they're going from, I know people who've always their whole lives eaten meat, right? And they've watched the Game Changers, and they're like, right, okay, and fine, they've taken bits from it.
Netflix, but now they're really reliable source of scientific research.
But they've gone to do it, and fine, it's they've been sold that whatever, but they're doing it from a diet standpoint versus all the other reasons, moral reasons and ethical reasons. And all right, okay, that's fine. But let's just break it down. You eat 3 to 4 times a day at least, right? Majority of those things you're currently eating have some sort of animal-based product in it, whether you're aware of it right now or not. When you look into this, and so every time you go to eat, you're going to be finding that you're having to adjust all of this. And this is me not smashing.
Haribo's out. Haribo.
Yeah.
Gelatin's from beef.
But I'm not smashing the vegan thing, because you can do this, and once again for everyone, but to completely go so so advanced, so the opposite to what you've been doing with anything. When people go, I'm completely cutting out, keto, right? And they're like, right, okay, so all these things, you're barely allowed a lot of fruit, right? And for things that we know that are beneficial for it, I'm not going to do that. And, so you're somebody who eats crisps every day, there's loads of stuff you're just going to have to completely knock on the head. And it's like, right, okay, cool. So, you ask these people, like, how long are you doing it for then? And they've got a time set on it. Like,
so how are you going to be getting on 50 years time doing this? What? 50 years? Yeah, it's a lifestyle, right? You're going to take it on this on.
No, I've got 30 day keto.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you've got a bucket of water. You've got 5 holes in it. You're going to plug a few, but it's still dripping out. So then, after 30 days, what you're going to do? Try and find another bucket, plug a few more holes. There's always a hole, a leaky bucket. If they don't find a thing that's going to be sustainable, and it's just so advanced. It's so extreme all the time. It just has to be so one
extreme.
way or another. And then we've covered it many times, but how are you going to feel on a day-to-day basis, giving up the things you really love? And we've always come back to simplicity for our sort of program systems and this, that, and the other. Working with clients and members over the years, we found keeping it simple, keeping it real, basically keeping it real for them. If they love a Mars bar every night, why can't we fit? Yes, it's not. It's processed. It's a chocolate bar. It's 250 calories, whatever. How can they fit that into their diet so that it actually, in a year's time, they can still eat a Mars bar rather than going, right, no chocolate, and then it gets that breaking point and they go and buy the whole of supermarkets.
You should definitely consider your own lifestyle before going into a diet. You shouldn't have to eradicate a whole part of your life.
Taking out macronutrient is crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, it works for some.
But like you're saying, with your lifestyle, it's like, why are you now in this position? What is it in your lifestyle that's got you to the point you're having to think, I have to do something so dramatic? Yeah. So you're at a point, right? There might be, often we get things that people want to diet for. Weddings, holidays.
You get it. You leave it too late. That's fine.
And that's cool. Happens. So you look at why you're in a position now that you need to do something quite extreme. Especially when people come in, like, I need to lose 2 stone. It's like, whoa. 2 stone, right? I'm not being rude, but if you're at a point and you feel like you're 2 stone beyond where you want to be, surely a stone. Surely a stone. You've probably, if you've really that amount, and then if you break it down, like, I'd actually be happy if I lost that amount. And the funny thing is, right, the amount of people who think they'll be happy when they're at a certain weight, and they've already been that weight, and actually, if you ask them what they were like at that weight, they weren't happy. They was like, oh yeah, well, I was really good, I was in this shape, and it's like, yeah, you say that, but if I'd asked you then, you'd have probably wanted something different as well. Yeah. So instead of looking at why, what I need to do to drop a stone, 2 stone, why have I got to 2 stone over? And actually, if you look at it, often it's quite simple. You know that you're possibly smashing 4 Mars bars every night. Probably not, but, or drinking 2 glasses of wine every night, or not doing any exercise.
I think it's more of a recurring habit than they believe. So it's not just a treat every few days. It's every day somewhere. Oh yeah, but I only have 1 Mars bar a week, right? But what else comes in on the other days? And again, we go back to it. Maybe 70-80% good foods. Put in that 10% junk food and add in bits that you really want. You can't cut out your diet. You really need them. Put them in as well. But if the majority is made up of balanced foods, not just keto, or Atkins diet, sort of fatty meats, or whatever crazy things people follow, like the cabbage soup, which is a thing.
Literally sounds like the most disgusting thing in the world, by the way. But as you say, it's that finding it, looking at it, going, right, what am I doing that's actually something more regular than what I had realised I was doing? And actually not having to go so extreme, but instead just going, right, I'm just going to drop off a couple of these, a couple of those, look at my lifestyle. I still get to live the lifestyle that I love. But I've managed to strip away a couple of little bits, and actually I'm in a much better position now, and I'm feeling better. And that's a big focus, is how you feel. And it sounds really stupid. It seems like the most obvious thing in the world, but often when people diet, they don't care about how they feel when they're doing it. They just want to see the outcome, the result of the dropping of the weight. And a lot of people, when they diet, are miserable as anything. It's like, well, you're not going to do that for long term. If you are, no one's going to want to be around you. So good luck being a stone lighter and having no friends.
I don't know if they associate some of the chronic issues with the food they eat, which is a bit strange. But we know, obviously, Ryan goes into the chronic fatigue and things. It's related to some of the foods. But like, if you were to eat something and it would give you a searing pain in your gut, you're like, oh, every time I have like eggs or whatever, it's definitely the egg. I'm just not going to eat eggs because it doubles me over. Yeah, it really hurts. But we don't. They may just get a bit bloated, or they may feel like maybe it's not even associated because it's like hours and hours down the line. Or they may wake up, they have a cereal, and then the next morning they wake up really, really tired. Oh, I just can't get enough sleep. I'm really, it must be my pillow. It must be the kids. No, it's probably the cereal that you're eating that's making you feel bad. But you can't make that correlation. Whereas if you ate the cereal and you literally throwing up, I'm not going to eat the cereal because that's making me really ill. But
it's just not. It's almost. It's not.
So they have to almost take extreme measures to feel like they've got to make big changes quickly.
So I think that's a big thing as well. So when we're looking at like when you're going into your next diet or whatever it may be, is look at why you're in that position, and then go, right, actually, can I just look at modifying very gently and increase that modification over time when I've become more comfortable with it by going, right, when I have, whatever it is, this bowl of cereal every night, if you've just said that, and I'm probably not going to do that, or I'll have one bowl every other couple of nights, or whatever it be with chocolate, or however it may be, and just start to reduce certain things and see how you feel, and then introduce some foods that you know are beneficial. I think, let's be honest, most people are aware of what's going to be slightly more beneficial for us to put in front of you, a bowl of veggies, fruit, and whatever, and then a bowl of chocolate ice cream. You probably wouldn't go, well, that's the most beneficial, was the chocolate ice cream for me nutrient-wise. But, you look at what possibly is more nutrient dense and go, right, well, actually, that's going to be... And actually, you start to eat that on a more regular basis. The crazy thing is you'd probably appreciate it more. You probably go, oh, actually, that does make me feel good. And I feel, I want to eat these sorts of things because I'm just naturally feeling better. So, these are all different things. So I guess that's my challenge. There you go. It's seamless link into the challenge part, is that try and get some, good foods in as such. And when we talk about good foods, I'm talking like your, veggies, your fruits and stuff. Try and, if you've got some real obvious sort of things that are, aren't that beneficial to you, maybe just reduce them a little bit and just see how your body feels. Feel like, all the different things that people do feel. See how that goes. And then, as I said, if that's a little, just write it down, see how you get on. But talking about that there's a challenge, focus on why rather than how you're going to lose weight. Why are we going to lose weight? As I was saying, challenges, we were talking about Grace's challenge, and she's put out there a press up challenge, which is really cool. And we sort of said, why is it? Well, part of it, I think, if we're honest, Grace would quite like to help increase her press ups, right? And that's fine, and that's great. And she's really good at press ups, by the way. And she's got really good in the last few weeks. She's been doing a program with us, and it's all got better. But speaking to a lot of clients, she's like, they want to improve this area. So I was like, well, let's set a challenge. But we discussed the pros and cons. I mean, Henry, have you ever set yourself like a particular challenge or anything like that before?
I've done runs and the likes, not marathons. So I'm not that fit.
2K, mate, or what were we talking?
10K.
10K.
Yeah.
All right, okay. 10K runner.
Yeah, not bad. Good. So it's just with that, like, I did not give myself enough time at all. But it was one of them that, well, first of all, it was for charity.
Yeah.
But then it was also actually like, I want a bit of a challenge. I want having a schedule each week. Okay, I'm going to get up at this time instead of that time. I'm not just going to sleep in all morning and then have my afternoon. I'm going to get up early. I'm going to go for a run, and I had a purpose, and it was good. But there obviously was some cons with that as well. That it was just there like, okay, I was socialising on a weekend, but I was just there like, oh, I'm gonna have to go home early, guys. Like, I've got to run at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So there was like, and also my time in the end, because I didn't give myself enough time to prepare for it. I was a bit gutted with my actual time, so it was one of them that like the end result was not what I wanted. I wanted it to be better. I wanted it to be faster.
When the fancy dress people are overtaking you, I think that's when you struggle to.
I would never do it. I'd never do it, and if I did do a run, I'd do it in fancy dress so I could blame the fancy dress.
Yeah. I think the point of doing it for charity means that you can't give up either. You have to keep going. Like, I can't. If it was for yourself, you'd be like, I didn't prepare. Well, I'll probably just call it a day at 3 miles. But actually, you have to keep going to the end because it's
I mean,
a good course.
This is so. I was with a good friend of mine, Dean, and last year he did the London Marathon. It was last year before. I think it was last year. I don't know where we are with the whole year thing going on, but last year he did the London Marathon. I mean, this is a guy who he can run, right? Without being rude, you wouldn't call him a runner, but he can run. But he set his mind to it, and he would say it was for charity. And I'm talking, a marathon is a monster of a run. I still, to this day, I'm like, take my hat off to him. You know, it's a big, it was a hot day, and he did phenomenally. And actually, for that whole year, he completely had to change somewhat. It was a lifestyle change for this event, for this thing, and he did incredible. Raised lots of money, did amazing, but. I saw him the other day, I was chatting away to him and we giggled about it. I was like, how's your running going, mate? And he's like, oh, mate, I did like 2K the other day and that was tough. That was really hard. Previously he was banging out sort of, 15, 20 mile runs once a week to build up to whatever he was doing, to get to his sort of 26, whatever he'd done in the end. And it's like, sometimes it can be too much. I've done it, when I've dieted and, whatever, and you go so hard, like, because you want to almost get to the very, very best you can be, and then you just like thought of doing that again. I don't want that pressure, I don't want that stress, the things that come with it. And after a while you look at some of the positives and you're like, oh no, I don't know, maybe I'm tempted to do it again. But often for a lot of people there's this like period of time afterwards for like months that can go on to like half a year to, you're like, now I'm not doing any of it. I'm almost going the opposite. I mean, for mine, it was all right because it was training and stuff, so I was like, I can get back into training. But for Dean, I know for the longest while, it was just kind of like he's hung up his running shoes. And
it's a typical yo-yo dieter as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
All or nothing, and then back to like binging. And
that is a huge subject, and this is something we've been covering a little bit this week, actually, for with clients, is the emotional side of nutrition, yo-yo dieting, why we seem to go to that extreme, or why actually it's the common. Yo-yo dieters aren't people that, you got a fad yo-yo. Most people kind of yo-yo diet in a way without even realising. Yeah. You wouldn't call yourself a yo-yo dieter, but a lot of people go on diets, drop off diets, go on diets, drop off diets.
Summer shred.
Yeah, exactly. So you get them doing like, and is it always a bad thing? Yes, no. I don't, one of these, what I would say is if you can...
phases throughout the year is perfect, really, because you can't sustain a really rigid diet for that long. But you have to have like times of relaxing, but not going to the point where it's just literally free for all.
But is it? So if you've gone on a diet challenge or an eating challenge, which might just be something like a diet, because they are pretty much challenges to yourself, never touching chocolate, never drinking alcohol, sober for October, whatever, that'll be relative in a little while. But then it's like, right, here comes November. Straight back on the beers, and it's like, right, I've hit 12 beers tonight, solid. What's the reason for it? Whereas, as we're saying, you're talking about having times of like, putting the foot down on the gas a little bit, but you're keeping a steady, pace the whole time.
It's not going to be a straight linear line, is it? It's going to go up and down slightly, of course, but it's not going to go up and down like your heartbeat on the old.
Yeah, exactly. Thing. So can you get something where you're pretty decent the whole time? Yeah, you're gonna have weakness times, it might be Christmas,
holidays,
it might be
time to relax,
and that's good. If you can then come back to your pretty care. And then you have times when just before the holiday, maybe you're like foot's down. Well, I'm actually going to go to that.
We see people increase their weight loss by having a little break, don't we? As well. Yeah. If they hit a plateau, the body slows down and doesn't really want to get rid of those extra pounds, and they, by refeeding a little bit, putting a few more calories back in, maybe gaining 1 or 2 pounds, kickstarts things again and actually drop off a little bit more, which is it's been shown in studies that that actually helps people, but they can't really get around the mental side of eating a bit more and putting on a bit more weight. Oh no, I need to keep dropping off.
But say if they use that increase of calories as an increase of performance as well, so they go, right, I'm having a little bit more to eat, but it means I can train a little bit harder, and you start using it as a positive. And I think that's really cool.
A bit of a break, and actually something to look forward to as well, rather than a lifetime of cabbage soup diet. Go, well, just do a little bit, have this week off.
It was a thing that both of us have done in the past, and we tried with it, like carb cycling, and it was almost like a fun game. And like those days you had slightly higher carbs, like buzz in, leg day, higher carbs, get to eat this. And you're like, train pretty hard, and we can go into that, by the way. There's no, it's not the magic behind it, but it was a little bit fun. It was a different way of playing with nutrition.
Yeah.
So I think if we wrap it up and look at, the thought of today would be, when you come to your nutrition or even your training, instead of looking straight away for how you're going to do it to drop the weight or to build the muscle, instead of looking at that, go, why are you currently in a position where you're not happy with your weight or you've not got enough muscle? What are we not doing? Why do I want to do it? Then look at those things. Can I adapt my current lifestyle in a way that I'm happy, that's not too extreme, and get a really good result? Why do I want it? Because if the purpose is big enough, as Henri mentioned with his charity run and things, the purpose is there that's big enough, then I will focus on it and I will do it. And as long as I do it in a way that I give myself enough time and I don't have to go too extreme, that I can sustain it then for a longer time, that is why I'm doing this. This is how I'm going to feel at the end of it, because there is obviously a how. You are going to have to do a how, but rather than just attacking how did, Sally down the road drop 10 pounds or John getting, 10 pounds of muscle or whatever it be, it's not that. Let's look at why we want to do it. How we can do it with our lifestyle is brilliant, but what's the real reason? Get that purpose. Why maybe you're not in the position you want to be. Is it quite a simple switch, change, something that maybe you just slipped into a bad habit? And actually, if we just change that little habit and put in, from a diet side, just a little bit of walking as well as dropping a couple of Mars bars here and there, then you might get an amazing result and difference without a huge extremity of that yo-yo up and down sort of feeling.
Yeah, perfect.
Cool.
Good.
All right, guys. Well, we'll see more of Henri.
Yeah, if you've seen Henri on camera, he's literally right in front of the camera for YouTube. We've got that going. Listen to, obviously, of the podcast, subscribe. Thank you very much, Henri, for joining us today.
Yeah, cheers, Henri. We didn't put you in too much of the deep end. I think next time, what's his biggest childhood fear?
Yeah.
Good. Right. Okay. Cheers, guys. Peace.